Okay, so let's take a look at this story now, where the Cannabis Trade Association Africa has high hopes for cannabis trade in the country. They say it's high time government followed international trends and eased regulation around cannabis. They believe trading in such products could dramatically turn around the economy, which is reeling from the impact of the lockdown. So to discuss this further, I'm joined by Anthony Cohen. He's a founding member of the Cannabis Trade Association Africa. Anthony, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. Do the current regulations align with global trends and the increasing demand for cannabis products?
Unfortunately, no, they don't. We have global trends that are a bit of a juxtaposition to our current status. And unfortunately, SAFRA has placed themselves in a position which is counter to the government's stance on cannabis. The government recently voted at a UN panel that they wanted to remove cannabis, CBD, and marijuana entirely from the scheduling. Only one law was passed at the UN, which was to actually take CBD out of a narcotic status. And here in South Africa, we have quite draconian measures and regulations. Yes, we do want regulations, but we want regulations that are aligned with international standards and support an industry and a growing industry that can really create thousands and hundreds of thousands of jobs for South Africans.
Well, let's stay with that point, because you do say that the industry could help boost the economy. How so?
Well, we have in South Africa quite a good climate. We could potentially grow 3 cannabis crops outdoor, like a hemp crop, 3 crops a year, which as opposed to a northern hemisphere country like a Canada can only grow 1 crop. So we have the ability to grow 3 times the amount of cannabis at low wage levels and with relatively cheap land. So just on those factors alone, we should be advantageous. And with our exchange rate being favorable to exports, it should place us in very favorable conditions to compete on a global scale.
Do you think that it's an issue of political will, or being able just to undo certain traditions as well as regulations that we are accustomed to as a South African nation? Or is it party politics here that we're unfortunately having to subscribe and submit to?
Well, I think there is some political will. The president has indicated in his budget speech that he wanted to, accelerate the cannabis industry. Yet the cannabis industry is being hand-tied by SAFRA, which isn't a government entity. It's a public-private partnership, which is pretty much funded by big pharmaceutical companies. So there could be a bit of a counter argument there that, they're withholding opening up the market. However, we really do believe that they should move forward, and there should be an easing in regulations, not taking away regulations, because we do want to protect the public and make sure that they get products that are true to label, that are safe and good to use. However, we want to see regulations that move towards the global standard, where we have a 1% or a 3% THC level. Here in South Africa, we limit to a 0.001% THC, and that's pretty much impossible to farm. And it creates a very difficult dynamic to create a product for sale.
Let's stay a little bit with the nuances when it comes to the industry in itself, because within the industry there are still these nuances of exclusivity. As you're making reference to big pharmaceutical companies, there's also fear that smaller businesses, should we even take it further and say smaller black-owned businesses, are still not participating to their maximum ability within the industry in itself. So I guess the question is, how then do we start opening up the industry so that we can see more players?
Well, there's there's a few aspects to the industry. We have farming and growing, and within that we have both hemp and marijuana. So hemp being a non-psychoactive plant, which can be used for over 4,000 different uses, including medicinal uses. And then we have a marijuana that could be used for medicinal marijuana uses. So there's quite a range of different abilities to create an economic growth within the sector. However, we need to look at how we can motivate and accelerate the rural farmers, because hemp seems to be that plant where anybody can grow it. We can farm it really on a rural scale and have community cooperatives to process. We can turn it into fiber, rope, building materials, bricks, and medicinal products. So that would be really my first wish, that we could accelerate the hemp trade and reduce the restrictions. So, for example, growing hemp today is quite difficult within South Africa because the licenses given are only for testing purposes. So even if I had a huge farm and I was growing hemp, I can't do anything with it. So we need to be able to transfer that license into an actual license that can be used for commercial purposes and increase the level of THC allowed in the plant in its growing phase in the field. So with South Africa being a high sun climate, we have a large amount of UV, and UV accelerates the amount of THC in the plant. And when I'm talking about THC, THC is the chemical within the plant that makes someone high, and CBD, the other chemical, which are the two main chemicals we talk about, which doesn't make someone high, but has a huge medicinal side to it.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, it's definitely something that is a conversation that rages on, as you can imagine, as well. But we'll have to leave it here for this evening. Anthony Cohen, there was the founding member of the Cannabis Trade Association of Africa, citing that indeed cannabis industry can contribute significantly to the economy.